This story is about a man who has a very political and rather boring life, but that makes up the reason that it was written, because the story is all about the ending and all about what he discovers about himself and finding that his life was meaningless and that his death should be meaningful.
The themes in The Death of Ivan Ilyich, of life and death and the importance of those two, are, in my opinion, the most important thing you can get from the book.
A lot of the ideas and the things that he goes through are like feeling lonely and stuff. All those things are things that we can relate to as students. Anyone can really relate to.
What I like most about The Death of Ivan Ilyich is the character of Ivan Ilyich, because he fits in so well with the theme of artificial life and authentic life. You almost feel bad for him because he lives such a boring life, and the only way to get out of this boring life is to die.
It's really interesting to see how Ivan Ilyich, how he was just an average man who thought he was pretty much better than everybody else, and then once he gets sick, he has a different view on life. I think that The Death of Ivan Ilyich is kind of basically, it's accepted in modern day just as much as it's accepted in Tolstoy's time. He has a kind of modern type of writing that I think everyone can universally relate to.
The Death of Ivan Ilyich, I think the story and the events that take place in the story are very timeless. It's about life and death, and that never changes. And there's so many events that take place in it that happen in a lot of people's lives eventually. Now, it hasn't happened completely in ours, but eventually it's easy to relate to. So despite all the foreign concepts and despite the fact that it's been translated, it's really easy to read, it's really easy to relate to, and everything is completely, utterly timeless. So
I think what made The Death of Ivan Ilyich, this translation particularly, seem modern was that it was translated only a few years ago, and that the translator rephrased everything and used more modern vocabulary as opposed to a directly literal translation. And it was more natural for the translator to make this version seem more modern as opposed to the ancient, dusty sort of language that would have been used in the original text.
There's a lot of things in the book that I could relate to. When it was at the end of the story, about death and stuff, that's something that we all go through or will go through. And so I think that that's why it relates back to today, and people will always be able to relate to it.
The real essence of the novel is at the end, when he's realizing all the actions that took him to where he is in his life, and the real plasticity of everything, the facade that his entire existence had revolved around. And this examination, I think, is the essence of the novel.
The Death of Ivan Ilyich, I feel the translation and within the story made a big difference between how it was read, because if you would actually go back and learn Russian, I think it would have been made a little bit more old-time sounding to where it is in the modern English. But either way, I think it is more of an all-time novel where you can read it whenever you want.
In the beginning, it starts out factual, and there are many names of people and their positions in the politics and with Ivan. And then by the end, everything was emotional and about him and death, and that was all. There was nothing more to it. It was all emotion, all idea, all feeling. I just liked how Tolstoy made that change from factual to emotional throughout the book.
The thing I liked a lot about The Death of Ivan Ilyich was the view of Russian culture and life, which I haven't really ever heard much about. So personally, that was the most interesting thing about the book.
What I liked most about The Death of Ivan Ilyich is the fact that it was really easy to read, and I liked how even though he didn't have the greatest life, he made up for it in his death, or he at least tried to.